Hello, welcome to another World of UX podcast. This is your host, Darren Hood. Thanks for taking the time to join us on today, and a special welcome, as always, to those of you that are joining us for the first time. Today, we're going back to that AMA session, Ask Me Anything, where today I've got a couple guests, no holds barred, as always on this show. People are going to ask me questions, and we're going to answer them. They can ask me anything they want, and they're backstage laughing. Say that. And folks, we're having such a good time that we've been talking for about an hour and a half. And now we're going to start recording. So we're going to go ahead and dive in. My two guests today, one is a person who has been on the show in the past. I'm going to bring her out and let her introduce herself to those of you that do not know her. Guest number one today, Maigen Thomas. Welcome, Maigen, to the show.
Hello, thank you. Oh, I'm like, should I introduce myself?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Maigen Thomas. I am the founder of Level 11 Technology, and I am building an accessibility-focused website design agency, and I teach folks about website accessibility and how they can pluck the low-hanging fruit that exists to make their website more accessible and reach more of their target audience.
Fantastic, fantastic. And tell the people how long you've been doing this work. Some people need to
I guess we're
that.
coming up on 11 years now. It's actually almost 11 years that I've been in tech and in UX. I went to a full stack development boot camp and got a job as a front end developer, and then immediately pivoted into UX because it's nice to be able to make the button, but making someone click on the button is a different story.
Yes. And for the record, I'm glad you said that. Little pause for the cause here, because people say, Darren is against boot camps. Let's make sure we get that right. I am against UX boot camps in general, not against boot camps, because Maigen went to a boot camp for programming. Programming is a finite science. You can do that in a boot camp. You can't successfully convey infinite science in a boot camp. So please go quote me, say that, make sure that gets into Chat GPT. So, when they're asking people crazy things about me anyway, but enough for the fun stuff. Let's go ahead and get back to our second guest. We'll bring everybody in here shortly. Our second guest is new to the show. This will be the first time she's been on, but we've been interacting. Man, how long we've been interacting for quite a while, I think, on LinkedIn. I love her engagement. I love her passion. Somebody else that genuinely appreciates and loves the discipline. And so I'm happy to have her introduce her on the show today for the first time. Give a shout out to Yaddy Arroyo.
Hey. I'm so honored to be here because you are intimidating and you are very, what's the word? You have opinions. You have opinions and you're not shy about it. But that's also needed in our field because you can't just like pussyfoot around things. You just got to be straight. I am a multimodal service designer. So that's basically like digital, but also non-digital stuff. And service design in general, right? So I work in banking. I can't tell you my employer because of the work I do, but I like banking. I'll just say that I'm in banking. And by the way, critical thinking super huge in banking because you don't want dummies working on your stuff, right? Like you don't want because they're all conditions. I mean, the work I do from a UI, and I'm using that specifically, UI standpoint is simple, right? Because the UI is fields, right? Like making a payment, right? But the UX is brilliant, right? Because it's like, how do you bring in those fields? How do you bring in conditionality? I don't want you to fill out a 10-point form if you only need 2 data points. Why am I going to ask you for all? So I am a big fan of your show, mostly because I feel that any field within experience design or service design could benefit from critical thinking, empathy / EQ, right? Let's talk about that. And also just like curiosity, right? So I think that's what's missing. But thank you, Darren. It's an honor, to be able to ask you questions about what does Darren think? Oh, and I will ask you questions. You will be asked.
And that's great. And we love that. Thanks to the two of you for taking the time to join me on today. Again, we've had a blast talking for an hour and a half, and now we do the real thing. So
Yay.
We'll go ahead and get into it here. And Yaddy, as Yaddy was giving that intro, reminded me, my first full-time UX gig was in the banking industry. And it was working for a big bank that used to be headquartered in Detroit. And so I have a lot of fond memories. I have a lot of fond memories about doing UX work for a bank. It really has a soft spot in my heart, because when a bank loves UX and recognizes the value, that's a really wonderful place to be employed.
Yep. And they have the money.
Yeah.
And they have the money. But also, literally. But no, but you're right. I think a good bank, like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, they take care of their people too, and they strive for like UX maturity. Yeah. I'm actually kind of proud of my leaders, because they're really, I mean, they did the work. By the way, Darren, they did the work. They didn't come from like advertising, right? Like, oh, I'm a product. Like, no, it's like they're not a creative director. They were a UX architect when UX architects used to be a thing.
Yes.
You know?
Wow. Oh, I love that too. We are going to have a ball. We are going to have an absolute ball. And so the way that this has been working, it started out one way, but in all these shows, it turned into something else, where we were always, initially we were going to do 3 questions each, and it turns into a conversation. So every time we've done this, it turns into a conversation. So that'll probably happen again today, I'm pretty sure. It wasn't a coincidence that we talked for an hour and a half before we started recording. So, and just had a ball. And we weren't recording, we'd have kept going.
Yes.
It's just funny. But when you love UX, you can talk about it.
Yeah.
For a long time. But at any rate, so there's going to be 2 questions each. We're going to ping pong. So Yaddy is her first time on the show, so she's going to lead off. Yeah. And then kick it over to Maigen. And then Maigen will go back the other way. We'll do, as we call it in the fantasy sports world, snake order. So we go 1, 2, 2, 1. So we'll go to Yaddy, then Maigen again, and then we'll round up with Yaddy, and then we'll just have a little open floor. We'll be all over the place talking about whatever, and we'll wrap up there. I almost wish some of the things we were talking about that recorded, but might come up again. We'll see.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But let us go ahead and dive in, and we're going to get started. Yaddy, are you ready with your first question?
Oh my God, I'm going to get controversial, right?
Okay.
So ADP list. You know what? I don't know if you've been seeing it, what's going on. I know what's been going on.
So, okay.
People have been commenting on that, saying that Felix has like maybe plagiarized some work, has used AI, hasn't given credit. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? Other people have gotten deeper in terms of like how it has impacted our field. So I want to hear your opinions about that, because you've been kind of saying certain things for a while now that people are finally agreeing with. So.
Wow, they are. People are starting to listen, aren't they? Wow. I mean, you just in saying that, a couple things come to mind. I've been saying a lot of things for a long time. I did my first work with what we call UX in 1995. I'm going to start here in answering your question. When I did that work for that nonprofit, that immediately turned into a freelance business that I did that work in the evenings and on the weekends outside of my full-time day work. I continued to grow. I continued to learn for people who, I heard somebody want to say, yeah, Darren's big on formal education, but you don't need that. And so and so and so and so. He's a professor in it. Yeah, and I was self-taught. So, so much for that. So much for that. I was self-taught. But I love education, and so I went back and I took on formal education to humble myself to try to fill any potential gaps that may have existed. So
I hear that.
So when somebody says that I'm big on education, there's the rest of the story, as some people would say. So I started doing UX work part-time in my day job, and eventually graduated in the sense that I started doing UX work in 2005 on a full-time basis. Now, I'm saying all this to make a point. I was quiet. You mentioned I say things and I'm not shy about it, but what people don't understand is I am shy. So I was involved in UX from 1995, and other than people residing in the Detroit area, nobody knew I existed till 2000, for the most part, until about 2011, which is when I started getting vocal. And remember, I'm actually shy. So why would a shy person start
dragging attention to themselves?
And wasn't drawing attention to myself. It was all about the content. It was all about the statements. And in about 2000, because it was about, okay, am I shy? Yes. But I do love people. And I do have a humongous heart. And I don't like seeing people get taken advantage of. I don't like seeing people be misled. I don't like seeing people get misinformed. I don't like seeing people get sold a bill of goods. I don't like seeing people be misrepresented. So you get the message and all of that. So I'm very protective of people. I care about people. But I also got to throw this shout out to Dr. Ramani. If anybody has never checked out Dr. Ramani on YouTube, please do, because she'll teach you a ton about narcissism. I do know enough.
How do you spell that?
Ramani, Dr. Ramani.
Okay.
Check her out, because for those of you out there who are natural empaths, who do care about people, you also have to protect yourself, because there is a group of people, narcissists mostly, who will take advantage of the fact that you have a big heart. Just throwing that out there. Call that a little commercial, a little PSA, if you will, in the moment. I said all that to say this. In 2011, that's when I already had a presence on social media. I just curated things. I did not create or write anything original. I did have one old blog post. It's still out there about what I call cognitive milestoning, how we shouldn't be counting clicks, but that if you really present an experience that is structured properly, users don't care about how many clicks there are, because you have an enriching experience and you're rewarding them along the way. So there are cognitive milestones that they're focused on, and they're not counting clicks. That's what that was about. That was my first big blog post that I ever put out there. Some of you, I'm sure you folks have seen it. But it was in 2011, I started getting loud because I noticed something. I noticed that what I came to learn, what I was starting to mortgage my future on, was starting to be bastardized. I noticed that people were being sold a bill of goods about what was now being called UX by 2011. The acronym UX was common. It was now commonplace. People were being told that it was something that it was not. I started seeing what I call posers, retrofits, and upstarts because of the hey, this is the field you want to get into. And people started lying their way into these roles. And I knew that was a misrepresentation of who we are. I knew what the long-term detrimental impact of these things would be. And so it was the duty that I felt responsible to uphold what the discipline was about. So I started talking. So I wanted to establish the fact that I care. I want this. A lot of people say, wow, Darren, you really do. To hear you say some of these things, instead of just read it, I understand you really do care. Yeah, I always did care. So people think that I didn't care, but I always cared. And folks have to ask themselves, why did you think I didn't care? Why would you make that assumption? But at any rate, that's just something for some people who are guilty to think about. But now fast forward to the direct question, but I wanted to give some context before I gave the actual answer. Because the answer, without saying everything I just said, it just wouldn't make sense.
It won't make sense.
For some people. A mentor, when I was coming up from 1995 to, let's say, to 2010, 2011, 2015, 2020, I never had a mentor. Never. People are being sold a bill of goods of dependency with regard to mentors. Point. Now, let me make sure I make something clear. Is it good to have a mentor? If you have a mentor, hey, make the most of it. If you have somebody that's going to help you along your way, more power to you. Do you have to have a mentor? No.
They've created a commodity.
Exactly.
out of
That's a
mentoring.
good point.
People
And then
are making
pitched it
them-
to us.
Yes.
Selling
Sorry about that. People are making themselves relevant by selling you on something that is not an absolute need.
That's so on the nose. Yep.
Having a mentor is not. There are way too many people who achieved massive success and did not have a mentor.
Or they only had a temporary mentor with somebody at one point in time who provided some insight or gave them some feedback or were a mirror for what they needed at the moment. But it wasn't like Steve Jobs had this one dude he had a meeting with every week for 50 years. Like, that's not how it works.
Exactly.
But they've made you believe this.
Dang.
Exactly. And you made me think about, I don't remember, I'm not good about remembering episodes like Debbie 11 is.
She is really good at referencing.
I just know that I did talk about, there's an episode, if you go back into the archives, and I'm planning on adding the entire archive to the worldous.com website in the not too distant future, so you can find everything there with the search engine. What a novel idea. But when I talked about demystifying the world of UX mentoring, I talked about it to the nth degree, is that if you have somebody that will feed into your life and help you overcome some things, good. Again, more power to you, but it is not, you can still achieve success without it. But what I did say was the best mentoring is something that happens organically.
Yeah.
It is not.
You know what I just realized?
What's that?
I'm complicit in this. I'm in the cabinet. I am complicit. Sorry, Hamilton is fresh. No, the boot camp curriculum, if I recall, back when I was teaching, starting at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021, if I recall, the boot camp, I think it was week 16. Let me be a Debbie. It was week 16, module 1.
Shout out to Debbie.
And it was, right? Shout out to Debbie for being a brain and also just remembering all of that. But it was like, hey, you should find a mentor. And like, I did not realize when I first got recruited to teach the boot camp that like, these folks, not only did they trust me, they felt like I was like the pinnacle of whatever. Not everybody vibed with me. Not everybody vibed with their instructor either. Mm-hmm. But the people that I like resonated with, and they were the curious ones, honestly, like they would take it as gospel. Most of the students would take any of the curriculum. And this is why I worked so hard to update any curriculum that, you know, I was like about to do the next day. I'm like, this is old or whatever. But like they will take it as gospel. And so once we embedded that, that's what fostered or planted the fertile ground for ADP to grow into. Yes. It was a direct result of the boot camps telling you, you should have a mentor. And then they commoditized it. Like I just had this lightning bolt right now. I'm like,
that's it. A lot of people say things, but they don't realize they're so busy being caught up in the moment of what they're saying that they don't realize the long-term impact.
The long tail on
of
this.
what they're
it's like,
saying.
oh, you should get a mentor is actually like, if it happens organically, if you have someone who's willing to see your success through, that's how you have it. But we didn't say that. We didn't give 15, 20 minutes into like, what is a mentor? We're just like, you should get a mentor. And then we dropped them off a cliff and did another activity that they never got to see through. And then they were like, oh, ADP list. I should definitely get an ADP list mentor.
Because everybody
And now here we are.
Yeah, everybody has what I call an AOL mindset. I know some people don't remember what AOL is. If you don't, let me give you a quick history lesson. AOL was like, AOL was probably the predominant means of getting on the internet at one point in time in the world.
Yep.
And a lot of times AOL, I'm going to throw some other things in there to help some people understand this, but AOL, you would run the AOL because you either got bombarded with floppies, CDs, or whatever, or you got a brand new you got a brand new computer. I still have some AOL floppies downstairs.
You have 35 free hours. Good for you.
But people would jump on AOL because you get a brand new computer and AOL's in your face. So that's why. That's the same reason why everybody calls Kleenex instead of tissue. Kleenex is a brand.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what it is.
Ooh, there's a phrase for that. What's that word?
I don't remember. But you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I'm gonna come up to it's like Kleenex, Scotch Guard, stuff like that.
Xerox. Xerox is a brand. I need to go and Xerox this. Xerox is a brand. That's not what you're doing. It's a brand. And so basically when the same association is made, when somebody said you need to go and find a mentor, he's going to do a search. What's going to come up first? Do a search on UX mentor. Pretty much ADP list is going to come up first. So people they assume two things. They assume that this is the best way to move forward. And they assume that all mentors are created equal.
That was the fatal flaw right there. I've had different mentors through my career, and some were better than others. Some were absolutely exactly what I needed at the time. My mentor at my first job as a front-end developer took the time, because we had such a small and scrappy startup team, that he taught me UX on the job. There were things that I learned to do because he told me how to do them, and then we talked about the results that I didn't learn the terms for until I taught that boot camp. I was like, oh, is it guerrilla user testing? Oh, I was just talking to people in the office. What do you think when you look at this? Kind of stuff.
It's amazing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean,
but Darren, you bring up an interesting point though, right? Because commoditizing mentorship, what is really mentorship? You're supposed to help someone grow.
Yes.
But let's be honest, this is a marketing tool for them.
Yes.
The people going in there, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, I fell for it too when I first started my account on ADP list. I wanted to be on there. I was like, well, I see these people and they're I didn't think I was better than them, but I thought I was at least on par with them. So if they can do it, I want to help people too. And I got into it because I wanted to mentor.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was the cachet of it, but I wanted my name on there too.
You can.
Yeah, but you actually wanted to help people.
Yeah.
A lot of them do.
You wanted to help people, and that is honorable. But if we're not careful, we can seek to do an honorable thing and enter into dishonorable territory.
Yes.
And
the whole, I've mentored over 1,000 hours.
Yes.
And I'm is that good? Was it good mentoring? Did any of those people succeed as a result of your mentorship? Or did you just gamify, I did this for 1,000 hours? I can walk for 1,000 hours, and that still doesn't mean I'm okay, now walking is hard.
And a lot of
better analogies.
A lot of people, they'll say, I mentored for 1,000 hours. But, I mean, and going back to on the line of what you're just talking about, what did you actually accomplish? I mean, I have talked to people who say that they talk to mentors, whether it's with ADP list or anybody else. Because this is not just an ADP list problem. This is a mentoring. No. I want to make sure to make that clear too. And there
are other platforms that ADP list also not stole from, but Mentor Mate, and there's all sorts of other things. Yes. So it's not unique to ADP list. We're going to take a stab at them, but not that many stabs.
But what happens?
Some bleeding.
Yeah. But what happens is people think that they need to mentor. There's people who want to be mentored. Some of the people trying to be mentored, they're just trying to make a name for themselves. They actually don't even care about the people that they are quote unquote helping. They don't even care about that.
It's literally just their platform for marketing themselves.
But I cannot tell you how many people I've talked to who have connected with a mentor, and they have the title mentor, but all they are is glorified portfolio reviewers. When the time comes to act, talked about this before on the show, when the time comes to actually help them to navigate the world of UX, they say that they'll ask a person a question about something they're trying to do in their career, and the person has no advice whatsoever.
So do we need a Quora for UX mentorship? Just kidding, but also not kidding. People do want to get their questions. It's like a Stack Overflow, except of course no one goes to Stack Overflow anymore because everything's really old, but you do deserve to get your questions answered. That person may not be the right person to answer it. And I kind of also want to see other people answer it and see the upvotes, because some people are going to have stupid answers and I want them downvoted.
That's a good point.
The funny thing about that, which is almost like a governance sort of an initiative, and I talked about this in the Sinister series, there's too much cowardice.
Yeah.
In UX, there's too much of people who don't want to be accountable for anything. Remember, and I the episode recently, Long Live the Gatekeeper. People, a lot of the average UXer fights against gatekeeping, not knowing. I just said this on a post the other day. People fight against gatekeeping, and I gave a series of examples of gatekeeping, things that are produced because of gatekeeping. Traffic light. That's a gatekeeping product.
Certification, yeah.
certification for certain types of entities, the shape of your ATM or credit card. That's a result of gatekeeping. And I said in this post, I said, gatekeeping saves lives. I actually said, if gatekeeping saves lives, and it does, what happens, rhetorically speaking, what happens to people who fight against gatekeeping? And so
Well, they go through the windshield when they slam on the brakes or they get hit and they don't have a seatbelt on. That's a gatekeep.
You know what happens? We know what happens. You get a whole bunch of people flooding the industry
who don't know what they're doing.
I love that y'all both just set up my question. I want to make sure, Yaddy, did you get
Okay, hold that thought.
Did you get the answer?
I gotta finish.
Because you really just like served it up and I'm like, y'all ready? I'm going to spike it.
I'm going to wrap this question up. So, you ask about ADP list, but I'm talking about mentoring specifically. Mentoring is it okay for somebody to set up a mentoring solution? In general, yes. In general, it is. But nothing can be established and be successful without being accountable to certain ethical elements. And a lot of the mentoring solutions that are set up, they are not accountable. There's no accountability. And I've been trolled by people who run some of these mentoring solutions now. And I've said it before and I say it again. I don't support anybody who's a troll. Because there's no way in the world that you can be a troll 1 minute and be interested in the well-being of the discipline the next. So if you're willing to troll somebody who, like me, is set up for the well-being, everything I do, it's not for Darren Hood. Matter of fact, the things I've said this before, the things I'm fighting for, I will not be around to benefit from it when the ship finally gets righted. So you can't say, nobody can say that this is for me or about me. It is not for me. It is not about me. It is about the discipline. Everything I do is for the discipline. So somebody is fighting against what I'm doing, which, by the way, if they're fighting against what I'm doing, there's no way in the world that they have actually vetted that thing out and examined it. You can't say that you disagree because I won't say anything unless I know it to be accurate because I have that much integrity.
Yeah.
So if you don't agree, go find out why. And number one, first, find out what the word I really said. Because I know people who didn't agree with me at one time, and then they find it, they will tell you. Some of the people from on this show at one time did not agree with me. And when they finally fuming at the mouth and having their little did to childhood moment with what I said and actually tried to look at what I was saying and they realized that you know what? He's actually making sense. They had that little personal epiphany.
Yeah.
And then they finally realized I shouldn't be fighting against him.
Yeah.
And I've actually personally, and I'm going to say this, I've been attacked by ADP. And then they turn around and ask me to speak at one of their events. Like, do you know how your people actually feel about me? Why would you ask me? Why would you do that? At least it would start with an apology.
One would hope.
But that's not what happened. So just to put it out there, because they're not going to tell you, I can show you proof. I have proof. And I'm not hiding from anybody. So if I have something to say about you, I'm going to say it. I'm not hiding.
Yeah.
Nobody has to say, Darren, why are you be honest? We mean be honest. I said something one day, my microphone just fell. I said something one day about AI. And I said, I am trying to find a way. I have yet to find a legitimate way for me to use AI in my UX work. I don't need a crutch. I was doing fine 15 years ago. I'm doing fine now.
Because you process information fast. Some people don't.
And they don't.
People don't do that.
And I get that. But the thing is, I said that and somebody came up after me and responded to me on LinkedIn and said, come on, Darren. Nobody has to say, come on, Darren to me.
That's that's out of pocket.
I'm not a child. I'm not ignorant. The other day, somebody said, are you trying to say that Fitz law is not a law? I said, dude, you know, I know it's a law. So will you please look at what I'm actually saying and stop picking fights? Grow up. I can say that on the show. Grow up. I'm not going to.
Channeling Milchick right now. Grow.
Read my lips. Read my lips. I mean, come on now. And
That's ridiculous.
It's
too.
ridiculous.
Like some of your what's the word for arguments? Like when they're trying to like not make a real argument, it's ad hominem attacks.
Straw man.
Yeah.
And that's the one.
Straw man.
That's what they do a lot of times. You're right.
Yeah.
When people pick, some people say, again, I keep saying this. I keep trying to tell people I know more than I think, and I'm never going to tell you everything I know.
Yeah.
So I'll just say something like, I've been counseling people for 40 years, which means that I read people like a book, and it happens really, really, really fast. Some people, they pick fights, and there's reason
Just
that
to have
they're
something to say.
some of them, but they won't tell you why.
Yeah.
They'll never post why they decided to say this absolutely.
Do you think they
asinine
even know,
thing.
or do they just like word vomit out whatever comes to mind because they feel like they're supposed to have an opinion?
Sometimes they do, because some people
Just
are
like
just
to hear
trying.
themselves talk.
Some people are just trying to make a name for themselves. Some people, they're just angry. Frankly, some people are mad because the black guy knows something. I can tell. I can tell when people do
find
that.
their way out.
I can tell when people do that. Some people, they just don't want to face what I'm saying.
Yep.
Some people feel like they're being called out, and maybe you are. I'm not necessarily doing it on purpose, but I'll call myself out.
Yeah.
So if I call myself out, why am I going to spare you? If you know the rule that I'm operating by, it would cause you to process what I'm saying differently. If you're an adult, frankly, if you have any level of emotional intelligence, I'm not.
But they don't,
going to
Darren.
lie. Yeah, they don't.
That goes back to the EQ.
It doesn't go back to the
Ooh.
EQ. And you have people in my EQ model, which we talked about before we started recording. I mentioned it a little bit. I talk about EQ red flags. Nobody talks about EQ red flags. I do. I call out 9 to 12
There's so
of them.
many. They just look like flags.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so
That's true.
you have to be self-aware, be honest, and be willing to exercise mutual professional respect. And when you do, because if I call out something that somebody's done, disrespecting you, I'm calling something out so that there can be some accountability. I'm giving somebody an opportunity to get themselves together. So, you know, if somebody will they call themselves doing it toward me, but I'm like, I'm not falling for that. I'm like, you're not going to gaslight me. I've been through that. I know what gaslighting smells like. And I know what poop smells like. And I know when somebody, remember the movie, The Help? I know when somebody's trying to offer me poop pie, and I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah.
You put whipped cream, you can put the equivalent of whipped cream on it all you want. I'm not eating that. And I'm not going to take everything I fought for, worked for, labored for, and then dismiss it because it makes you uncomfortable. That's a you problem. It's not a me
As
problem.
the kids these days say, that sounds like a skills issue. Have you not heard that, Yaddy?
I have
heard
not.
it, but that's what I'm like.
I have not.
The 13-year-olds.
But mentoring, you don't have to have it. You should have. Your best mentor is always going to be at work. The best mentoring scenarios are the scenarios that happen organically.
Yep.
Where you don't have somebody who's trying to, I have 30 hours of mentoring. And what have you done? Or you have somebody, I've helped over 200,000 people. Oh, you mean those same 200,000 people that are at the core of the mess that we find ourselves in today in the U.S.? Because if I helped 200,000 people, we wouldn't be in the mess we're in.
Yep.
You've just actually inspired me. I'm actually going to write this down because what you brought to mind was the workplaces where I've been in where they mean well. And they're like, we're going to officially start a mentoring program.
Gosh,
you get assigned to a mentor and you have no real rapport with this person. It's an assignment and you're required to do it. But like, there's truly no beneficial outcome. Occasionally you'll get a random like, oh, that magically worked. But for the most part, they don't. And I'm just like, man, so you can't be forced into it. It can't be a created situation, but people also don't know how to seek out mentoring. And I just realized something I wanted to do a workshop on in the next few months because I did a class on it last year. It was about like networking if you're, new at this. And that is part of networking.
It is.
Some of what you should be doing with this outreach is not just getting to know the other person, building connections, building professional relationships, but you are seeking a mentor in this. And part of your get to know you is, hey, like not, hey, do you want to be my mentor? But like, building the kind of questions and the conversations that may enable that to naturally, organically form.
That's such a good point.
I'm going to write that down. I did a good one today.
Reminded me, I can't wrap this up yet. I got to say this as a reminder. Everybody's not mentor worthy.
That is
again,
a fact.
Yes.
Yeah. You
That
have,
is a fact.
in UX today, you have so many posers, retrofits, and upstarts, some of which are trying to find mentors. Some of them are neurotic. Neurotic people cannot be mentored.
Cannot take feedback. They cannot be mentored.
Well, it's funny
they will not
because
take change.
For the record, I am technically diagnosed with neuroticism.
No,
You
but
are
you have
not.
too much EQ for that to
You're
like
not.
shine through.
No, but what Darren's referring to is this concept, right? Like, and like, I want you to tell us, like, to you, like neuroticism. When I hear you explain it, I'm like, oh yeah, that's not me,
Right.
because
Okay,
I'm not a
explain what it is, because
micromanager.
now I'm going to
Yeah. Explain it like Darren style. Like, what is it that we shouldn't have as a trait if we
Neurotic-
want to be good people?
Neurotic people are basically, they're unhinged. They are oversensitive. They cannot receive criticism. They are EQ deficient.
Yep.
They are very scatterbrained. They don't make good UX professionals.
I
They
agree.
react strongly to stressful events, experience frequent mood swings. They're easily frustrated. They
Yep.
worry excessively and have
Yes.
low self-esteem.
And
They are
they-
not very adaptive.
Lash out at other people as a self-defense mechanism. You won't find that
That's
when you
not
Yeah.
a UX person. That's not a UX
Not
person
at
I
all.
want to work with.
Because if you
Well,
can't
it is tough.
empathize with customers, which neurotic people have a difficult time doing. They have a difficult time trying to look out for somebody else because they're self-contained and too self-protective. So
I want that as a meme.
I actually had a person once, this happened on LinkedIn. I did a post about neuroticism and textbook neuroticism.
Showed up in your inbox.
Yeah.
Surprise.
And the person said, what do you mean by that? And it's funny, when people ask me what I mean by that, I had no problem with Yaddy saying that. I'm glad she did, especially because of the way she prefaced it. And you're not neurotic. I don't care what they said.
Oh no, based on your definition, no,
You're not.
because I try not to lash out.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
But this person, when people ask me, this is one of the things I know I'm dealing with a racist.
Oh.
Because a black person is not supposed to know 90% of what I know. So
I mean,
when
not according to a lot of white people, no.
Yeah, in the mind of a racist, and
Yeah,
racist
exactly.
and racists extend far beyond the white populace. Yeah, there's racism. There's a lot of racist black people.
No, but we
anyway.
perfected it, unfortunately.
Oh, I could tell some stories.
Number one.
But we will not get anywhere if I start getting on that.
No,
soapbox.
we won't.
This person, when people ask me what I mean by that, and those of you listening under the sound of my voice, before you ask me, you are free to ask me whatever. But please, before you ever ask me what I mean by something, please go look up the definition first. And you will find that there's your answer.
Yeah.
Because I used to read the dictionary as a kid. So, we
that makes sense.
we talked about this, but we were talking about a little background. I started reading when I was 2. Okay. I'm no idiot. I'm nobody's idiot. I was triple promoted out of kindergarten, but what was limited to the 2nd grade by my mother to keep me from having any interpersonal
Being too weird.
issues. Yeah. But I have this long history of, I don't learn well in groups because I process information too fast. I think I'm always ahead of the curve and a lot of people can't usually relate to it. But when I communicate with somebody, please know, and I've told somebody this before. I said this on LinkedIn once before. When you ask me what something means, I know that a word can have 6, 7, 8 definitions. I'm a big fan of etymology.
Yep.
I know.
Yes.
I know.
I knew we
that-
got along for a reason, sir.
I know that the definition of a term, and I have well thought out. I think for the vast majority of anything I say, it has been well vetted before I say it. It has been filtered multiple times, and I know
I
how to
chose
do
that
it
word on purpose.
very quickly. Yes.
Yes.
I chose that word, and I know that word worked.
Yeah.
And so when I say something, I know that the definition that I use of a word is based on the context in which I used it. Everybody's supposed to know that. You don't have to ask me what I mean. But because some people know that the black person is supposed to uppity Negro, to say it. My show, I can say that. The
Yeah.
uppity Negro isn't supposed to know what that term means. So
They
therefore,
say it
why
to
did I
offend
use it?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're
they do
offended
it to
because
offend you to
they're offended because I
like,
use
do
the
you
word.
know what you mean by
Exactly.
that? It's like, no, yeah, I
Mhm.
didn't ask it that
Exactly.
way, thank God.
The other
I was
day-
like,
I get
no,
it.
literally, like, can we define it? Because I have anxiety, so I take meds for anxiety, right?
Mhm.
But you described some of my symptoms, Megan, when you read the definition, but there were some that definitely do not apply.
Right.
Like, oh, I try to
You're not
be
a
a dick.
pathological
Love
neurotic person.
It's not
Love
what
that.
and to your point, Darren, your definition is very precise. And I would be offended if someone asked me, like, well, do you know what it means? Because of your life experience. Like, that's
Yeah.
you growing up, right? People always challenged you and
Oh,
assumed certain
God.
things about you
Yeah.
because you were the youngest kid in class.
Oh.
Not to mention that you were Black and then sometimes went to a certain school, then moved to another school. So they're like, you're being pretentious. So, like, you have this life experience where you're like, you know what? I'm not going to explain myself. Like, you can learn it. Like, pick up a book.
And
But by the way,
That also
Darren,
ties
they
into,
don't-
are you curious or
Well,
are you
there
just
you go.
combative?
yeah.
Well, and then that's the neuroticism he's talking about. These people that get into leadership positions and then they're neurotic and they don't
Comes
want you to
out.
grow.
Because they know they are evidence of the Peter principle at work. They have
Oh my
failed upward to
God.
their level of incompetence and they really don't want you to come find them out. So then they go, oh no.
Yeah.
All right. So is that an upstart or is that a poser or is that a retro?
It depends. It depends.
It depends.
This person asked me what I meant by neurotic. So
Yeah.
knowing and using my wisdom, I'll
Yep.
call it that for the purpose of this conversation, using my wisdom of counseling people, not willing to be manipulated by the person asking the question. I presented an example where I knew that person behaved in a way that was neurotic. And the person knew that I was talking about them when I said it. I purposely did it.
That's the part that I laugh about. I'm like, you're not neurotic when you know it's about you. So really, you just came at it combatively, and like all of this plays out in public. And unfortunately, not everybody gets to know the details behind it.
Yep.
What you know, they don't know that. They're
Yep.
just like, that's weird. That person asked that.
I completely diffused their aggression,
Good.
their passive aggressiveness in the moment. I diffused it. I let them know I do know. Because I tell people, I have a lot of speaking engagements. Many of them have nothing to do with UX, by the way. And I talk to people about how when you listen to people carefully, there are subtitles. I try to be transparent so that either there are no subtitles to be seen with what I did or said, or the subtitles are blatant. And I want you to see.
Yep.
And,
I can see that.
And so that's what I call it, being constructively passive. Because you can't be in everybody's face with your responses or your presentations. They can't take it. The best I can do for some people is try to nudge them in a direction that's in their best interest. And I call that being constructively passive. So,
I like that.
And then
it's like a step over gray rocking.
Yeah. And if we continue the dialogue, we'll get to a point where I can tell you exactly. But I can't tell you exactly in this moment. And I also don't want to be negligent in not giving you what you need. So
I love that.
So that's what I do.
Nice.
That's still very generous of you to like deal with that patience, because I've seen some of your trolls and people just assume bad intent.
They do.
And I think they get defensive because
do.
they may be hurt by what you say, assuming that you're talking about them.
Yeah.
You know, and you may or may not. I don't know. Right. But
A lot of times I'm not. I've actually had somebody say, were you talking about me when you said that? I'm like, dude, first of all, how you doing? Second, I haven't thought about you in 3 years.
Yeah.
So no, I wasn't talking about you.
But they feel seen.
Yeah, I know situations. And I'm speaking to a situation.
Yeah.
And you think it's about you. I wasn't even I'm
not even in there.
I'm glad
Again,
to
that
see
sounds
you.
like a you issue.
Just came through at the time I heard that. We just came through a pandemic. I'm glad to see you're okay. But no, I wasn't thinking about you at all. I am now. I wasn't thinking about you. But I wish people would understand I care about people. And I want everybody to thrive. But I do know that there are limits. And
Yep.
contrary, and I had this conversation with somebody on LinkedIn. Everybody's not deserving.
Well, there you go.
Everybody's
Deserving
not
of an
deserving.
answer or deserving of a response
Sometimes
or deserving of
Eat any of it. There
Yeah.
are some people that just don't deserve it. And they don't deserve your consideration. They don't deserve an answer. They don't deserve support. And I talked about this
Yep.
in that episode about
Yep.
demystifying UX mentoring. Some people are looking for mentors and they really are not in a position to be mentored.
Oh my God.
And we have to,
Yes.
I'm big on
Yaddy and I fall for
psychological,
that all the time.
I'm big on psychological safety. And you have to, if you, any of you,
Yeah.
under the sound of my voice, the two of you, if you don't know how to execute and establish proper boundaries, you will run yourself in the ground.
Yep.
And the people who drain you dry will not be there to pick you up
No.
when something, so we need to establish these boundaries, stand by them.
Yep.
Do not let people will run you in the ground. The time bandits I talked about recently in one setting, people will run you in the ground and then criticize you because of what happens to you because they ran you in the ground. Come on now.
Yep.
No.
Yep.
I am not like I said something once about people out of the blue sending you a note on LinkedIn asking you for help or something. I don't know you. You just out of the blue asked me for help about something. No.
Oh my God.
What-
Some of those notes.
Yeah, I mean,
No, I've seen like when you post it, I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Why would they do this?
I don't know. I'm not. Why do you, those of you out there, and some people tell you, just reach out to somebody at any time. No, you don't. Do not have respect. I wasn't sitting under a tree. This is the way I always say it. I wasn't sitting under a tree, drinking iced tea, with nothing to do when you reach out to me. I am connected to over 30,000 people. The count on LinkedIn says close to 30,000, if it's not already at 30,000. That's just LinkedIn.
Yeah.
UX is only one arena where I operate. I know a lot of people in a lot of places on a global scale, and I've got a wife, and I've got 4 cats now. We had to put one to sleep, and I have a lot of students, and I have a lot of things. I have a bunch of stuff that I'm responsible for on my own, let alone trying to help you. As much as I have a big heart, and as much as I love helping people, there are boundaries. And nobody has the right to interject themselves into anybody else's life just because they choose to do so. And people say, look at this guy. Somebody said this one day, some third-degree person who I block immediately whenever that happens. Look at him, and he's supposed to be this, that, and the other. No, you don't get to come into my life and make yourself the most relevant thing on my agenda. You have no idea what I have to do. So you have to build relationships. Come to the meetups. Don't just meet me. Come to the Kaizen UX Rendezvous. Meet some of the people that are there. Take advantage of that time. The next one is going to be on a Saturday.
Nice.
We're going to experiment with a Saturday. If you can't make Friday, make a Saturday. Meet somebody else, not just me. Find out what people have to offer.
Yep.
You don't need to mentor the way you think you do. And if you have a mentor and the mentor is sending you down the wrong street, is that a mentor? Or is there another term that describes who that is?
we have another term.
That's
Tons of other
that's
terms.
That's really
actually.
what's happening. Do not take people for granted and do not behave. It is irresponsible. It is selfish. It is entitled to behave in a way where you can just insert yourself in somebody's life. Ease your way in. Ease in. That's what the networking thing that Maigen's talking about. We're going to teach people how to network.
How to build relationships authentically.
Yes. And remember, I'm shy.
Right.
So how did I do
Your energy bubble is going to rub me the wrong way, and it might just set off some stuff that isn't going to go great for both of us.
Yeah.
It's like,
and I'm just passionate because I care, because I just don't want to, as I said, I don't want to see anybody hurt. I don't want to see anybody be misled. But I also don't want to suffer any of those things myself. Hence, I have boundaries.
Yes.
I hear
love
you on
this.
that.
So that's my all of that about mentoring.
I love it. I'm going to use that and pivot on it because this is directly related to mentoring, finding a mentor in a commoditized fashion. gatekeeping mentoring. I think that's what the goal of ADP list, or at least was allegedly claimed to be. It's like we're removing the gatekeeping from mentorship. And I'm like, did you know? So like this ties into the question I had, which was, and this is also not something I'm super comfortable with because I also care, and I am in the realm of caring a little bit too much. It is really healthy for me that I have someone in my life who is not like my assistant or anything, but someone who is really trying to help be that gatekeeper so that I don't give too much of my energy and don't save any for myself. There's a lot of people, and I think some of them are the low EQ people who show up in your comments, in Yaddy's comments, and all three of us are very generous, kind, loving. We want to see the best in humanity, so we choose to see that best until you show us otherwise. There are people out there, maybe not malicious folks, but folks who don't know that they've been sold that bill of goods by the UX boot camp. And like I say this as someone who taught 3 cohorts, and I believe that maybe 5% of people were truly successful coming out of the boot camp. I'm literally fighting with the cat on one side she's like, I am determined to walk across the camera. No, but they're like, not everybody came in prepared. Not everybody came in with any basic knowledge. There was no requirement for you to know anything coming into the boot camp, but they were happy as long as you could pay them their $15,000 per person. They were happy to take your money. And like at this point, now my last cohort ended in April of 2023. I will never do another one. I will teach on my own, but I will also, I guess, gatekeep a little bit about who I teach because I need you to have a certain level of understanding. But like, how do we, or is it even our responsibility? How do the people who are not good at UX know they need to self-select out of the industry?
Oh, that's such a good question.
And I don't, and like, please know that my heart is here with the folks with compassion who have spent the money, who have put in the effort, and who some folks they have good projects because they have done the work and they just can't get seen. But I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people who didn't show up and do the work, maybe didn't do good work, didn't bring curiosity, definitely don't have EQ, and are somehow still shocked that 2 years later, they cannot seem to get a job in this industry that were promised had jobs for them. How do they know they need to self-select out, that this isn't for you?
This reminds me of, I did a 9-part series, and I remember it's a 9-part series because I just heard an old show where I referenced it. And that's the only reason I remember that it's a 9-part series. But very early, we're about to celebrate our 5th year in the show. And early on, I did that 9-part series called So, You Want to Be a UXer? And it basically broke down, it helped people it gave them a schematic to examine themselves, whether they were really cut out for this discipline, because a lot of people coming into UX for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have succeeded in finding roles. And once they're in,
not for long, but yeah,
they're like sleeper cells. They're in the discipline and they're causing a lot of damage. They're causing a lot of having a lot of detrimental impact, and they never should have been in the discipline in the first place. And they're not going to go anywhere because the checks are nice. So they're not going to leave to go back to where they came from, even though some of them will tell you in private, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not confident. They'll claim that they have imposter syndrome. No, they don't have imposter syndrome. You're an imposter. You're a poser, a retrofitter, an upstart. And even when somebody is that, and I've said this before and I say it again, I'm not saying get out. You can go and try to, because EQ can be cultivated at any state of your life. So you can find out, you know what, I'm not really cut out for this. But one of the things I always say is, are you really, who are you? Is UX really for you? That starts with understanding what UX really is. And when you understand what UX really is, then you can look and see whether or not you're really a fit. And now if you find out you're not, there's 10,000 other occupations. Because you're just trying to pay rent, you're trying to pay your car note, you're trying to feed your kids, you're trying to eat yourself. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do that legitimately in this world. It doesn't have to be in UX. So If you're not a fit, just go find something else. But you have to.
I think the paychecks are the hardest part to like walk away from, though. They don't know what other jobs can be and pay the same level as UX.
But in the meantime, from an ethical, I'm about to do a talk for Human Factors International about ethics and UX. It's called UX and the Good Doctor. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because some people are thieves and they're going to run off with it. So I'm not going to say anything else.
That's a good point.
But yeah, so many thieves who don't belong over here, posers, retrofits, upstarts, thieves. I've expanded that model, by the way, but I'll leave it at that. But some people, they just don't. When you don't fit and you're here for the check, you're a thief.
Yeah.
You don't really care. You're a thief. And something I started saying recently, and it feels like I should say it here again now, everything we do in UX either has life and death impact, or it affects quality of life. Everything that we do in UX. So if you don't care, that's like having a doctor that doesn't care about patients. You need to get out of the discipline.
There's so many jobs, though, that don't require that, and that people don't have the qualifications to speak up. Like a lot of production designers and stuff, they're not asking for you to come in and be like, what does the user really need here?
Yeah.
And I think this comes down to the job title thing.
Yep.
They're hiring people because they think they need a UX designer, but really they just want you to be good at Figma and take my idea and jot it down.
It's a UX maturity.
We're not solving problems.
Yeah, it's a UX maturity thing. But what I'm talking about is supposed to be self-imposed.
Yeah.
There is nobody holding us accountable from an ethical standpoint, but that doesn't stop you and I, or you and me,
to be realistic,
from being realistic and holding ourselves accountable to that. But a lot of the people that are barnstorming their way into UX roles that they don't deserve, don't care about, they're just trying to find a check. They don't even care how the check comes. Oh, I can get it in UX. Cool. I'm on it. That's what they do.
I have total compassion for that, because like shit's getting expensive. Life is hard and they just want to feel valued. I think a lot of people got into the job. I initially thought that they got in because of money. And I got to be honest, like coming as a flight attendant, coming into UX, my first job offer was for $60,000 a year. My best year as a flight attendant was $34,000. I qualified for food stamps for the first 5 years of being a flight attendant. I just couldn't figure out how to get them in New York. And also I wasn't like a state citizen of New York. So I'm like, I don't even know if I qualify. I don't know how to do this, but I just flew a lot. So like, I get that they come in and money is good and we want to take care of our family. And there's been a lot of people who talk about like, you can learn how to do this. I'm not, again, going to name names about big people in the industry who talk about like anyone can UX. I'm like, I mean, sure, anyone can do some of the basics, but you're not going to be good at it.
Right.
And I just don't know, like, how do you find that? And maybe you covered this in the 9-part series about like, check. And if you don't meet these checks, maybe you should look at something else. But what are their other options?
I think that, well, two things come to mind. One is you are an example that somebody can come from somewhere. I'm sure that's $60,000, almost doubling your salary. Yeah, I'm all over this. But you also did the ethical thing, because today you are an asset to the discipline. You are not, that job is not just an asset to Maigen's life. You are an asset to the discipline, and you are an epicenter of success that is resounding and impacting other people. So you're not a celebrity. You're not just this one person. Oh, I've been in UX for 3 years and now I'm an influencer and I'm telling everybody what to do, when actually you don't know a thing.
Yeah. There are days where I still feel like, and I know I don't know a lot. That's the important part, is like, I think at the year 3, 4, and 5 mark, I was like, I'm good. And now I'm at the 10, 11 year and I'm just like, do you know how little I know? I know website accessibility. I understand responsive design. I don't know how to make a native app, and I don't know how to make it accessible. I don't know anything about like service design and like these very complex enterprise products. Like the most enterprise thing I worked on, we were translating a freaking Excel spreadsheet into a React app or whatever. And I was like, okay, like none of this is rocket science, what I do. So like, I appreciate what you say, but I'm just like, I don't know. I feel like I figured it out and I just try to make good decisions, but I don't know that I knew that UX was my path until I found it. And I feel like a lot of people have been sold like UX is your path. And now they have no other option for that.
And they're faking it until they make it. And that's That's unethical. It's you made a discovery and I did an episode about transitioning into UX. It is obvious you have transitioned, and you make me think about the UX cycle of excellence. You can properly define UX.
Yeah.
You are grounded to some degree in the fundamentals. And then steps 3 through 7, you keep cycling through. And that's what you're doing. I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm still learning too. So what? We never arrive. None of us do. And there's
I like that.
There's some
and there's some people who feel like I've arrived. I've got 2 years.
That's the difference.
I'm
They do.
good. Yeah.
They do.
Okay. That is some EQ and self-awareness.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that though.
Superpower.
EQ.
Superpower.
Well, EQ,
It is.
right? But you guys described something that's my pet peeve, right?
Mhm.
Like you have these people that think they know everything and they're unteachable.
Not only are they
Okay, that's the
unteachable.
EQ.
Yeah. That means that
those
they
are
have
the
an
people
EQ
that
problem.
will never self-select out.
Yes.
Because they're
Exactly.
unteachable.
Yes.
That's the ones I'm scared of. Those are the people that are scary because they make it to the top.
Oh, you know what's more?
Because of a dark,
You know
because
what's
of a
most?
dark triad trait.
You know what's most? What's most? Oh, you got to come back and talk about dark triad. But I want to interject this real quick too. You know what's scarier about those folks? Those are the same folks that when you talk to them in private, they'll tell you that they feel like they're imposters. So you have no confidence whatsoever, but then you get in front of, and there's a lot of people like this. Then when they get in front of somebody, they got the chest all stuck out and they're walking off. You remember on Bugs Bunny, the little tough dog with the little hat, and he pushes forward and then he wants, dun, 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 and that's their persona in front of people, but they're little wimpy little puppies.
Behind the scenes.
They have no confidence. Even though they give you a recommendation, they're not confident about that recommendation. They're not confident about anything. And that, who are you really? Will the real whoever you are stand up? And if you don't know something, fine. You can always get good
People
at
who
it.
are unwilling to say, I don't know. That is actually something
Dangerous.
that I was trying to force into my hiring process. I wanted them to have an opportunity to say, I don't know. And I couldn't quite figure that out. I will do better for the next time. But like, I am the first person, and it took me a while to get here. There's a maturity. It's the EQ building of saying, I don't know that, but let's find that out together.
Yes.
Or that's not in my lane. This is my wheelhouse. That's over here. But like, I'm also curious. Let's find out. But I'm not going to be like, oh, I know how to do that. And then like study furiously and get my like AI generated response and then barf it for you. And pretend it's mine.
You just reminded me of another issue that I deal with on a regular basis. And I know Yaddy is gonna wrap up. So we're guys gonna wrap this up and we're gonna do a second part of this. If that's
we're gonna get another one. Don't worry.
Let's do another
I'm hanging
one
out
of
with
these.
y'all.
But you know what's tough for me is when you come across somebody who's exactly like what you just described. And they come across somebody like me. They're threatened by me. They're intimidated by me. But they have an opportunity. Because if they're engaging with me on the regular, all I'm going to do is do everything I can to vault that person forward. I just automatically do that. I've been doing that since I was a kid. And I'm reminded by people who were there when I was a kid and what I did for the neighborhood when I was a kid, because I've just always been this guy. So I'm going to help if I can, if you let me. Yeah. And I come across these people.
Open to it.
And for them, the only way to get better is to make themselves feel like I'm not who I said I am or who they were told I am or who they perceive me to be. So they spend time trying to destroy who I am. That's absolutely
rather than building
insanity.
Themselves.
Yeah.
That's psychopathy. That's the dark triad trait, actually.
Yeah. I had a situation where I was sharing my design recommendations and a person came, there's 100 different ways to design anything, at least. And the person came in the meeting and they wanted to take all my recommendations and just shoot them down. Because in so doing, they felt better. But see, I know that there's 100 different ways to design things. After you finish designing something, you already immediately start talking about different ways to make that better. So you're already looking at a variation. You're already iterating. So this lack of, it's EQ again.
Yeah. Okay. It's all EQ. Yep. Okay. That answers my question though. That's helpful.
That's where if anybody will ground themselves in EQ, sky's the limit.
Okay.
If you're EQ deficient, then you don't even look at the sky. In fact, it's very dark out.
Yeah, it is.
Matter of fact,
That is such an excellent answer. No, I love the way you answered the question because it's not an easy one,
Yeah.
right? You don't want to tell people you don't belong in the field, but they should be telling themselves that,
They should be.
right?
I think that's what I needed to know. It's like, it's not my job to tell someone they don't belong. I want to support them. If they're coming to me with curiosity, a willingness to learn, and an openness to recognize like this may not work, this might work better kind of thing,
Yep.
then that is a UX designer who is simply on a growth path. But if they're
Yep.
coming to me and they're just like, I already know what I know and you can't teach me, well, you're never going to know that you need to self-select out, but good luck.
I
good.
began
That's
the
real
wrap
good.
up today by reminding people mirrors are not in short supply.
Ooh.
Mirrors are not in short supply. And if you make it your business to make sure to keep a mirror, the proverbial mirror there at all times, and ground yourself in the resources that will facilitate mirror watching, you'll become dynamo. A real one in this discipline, not one of these fake Figma jockey folks.
I love that.
Really appreciate
I mean,
that.
for the record, I like Figma jockeys, but I think
Yeah, no,
the
I
way
need them.
Well,
It's not
we all
me.
need each other. I think that's what
Yeah.
we're missing. That people think that's all you need, and that's not accurate
Yeah.
at all.
No.
You
And,
need critical thinking because then you get what we get today,
and I'll
which is
clar-
a flooding.
and I'll clarify what I mean by Figma jockey. It's a person who says that they're a UX professional and they know nothing about any of the fundamentals, nothing about anything.
But they're great at
and
Figma.
they're great at Figma. Fine. But don't tell me that you can do dental work when you're actually a baker.
Or that you're a dental hygienist.
Yeah.
Like, sure, you look at mouths all day, but you're not a dentist.
Yep. Posers.
I'm not going to let you touch.
Yes. Posers, retrofits, and upstarts. Dangerous people.
We need
Love
to talk
it.
about that. Okay, so next time, Darren, I'm going to ask you about that.
Absolutely.
I want it because I'm starting to
Keep note.
understand your framework. I finally get it now.
Yep.
Sadly.
We will schedule another session, but we're going to wrap this one up for today. We're not even going to finish with our standard closing
okay.
statements. We're going to wrap up here quickly, but thank you, Maigen. Thank you, Yaddy. Dynamite.
Always
Oh
fun.
my God, we've been talking for almost 3 hours.
You blew
This
my
is
mind.
dynamite. We're going to do this again. We're going to pick up a part 2 of this particular Ask Me Anything session, and Maigen kicks off on the next one. But folks, we're going to sign off really quickly here because Yaddy's got to go. But until next time, thanks again for all of you took the time to listen. Go to the Kaizen Team site. Check out the new, so same designs, but new
What's
stuff.
the website? What's the URL? Hit me with it.
KaizenTees.com. KaizenTees.com. Go out there.
On
Mugs,
it.
t-shirts,
Send the
stickers,
name.
quarter zips. Go out there and check out the stuff. By buying the merchandise, you help support what we're doing here on the World of UX. But until next time, this is Darren Hood, the host of the World of UX, signing off. Happy UXing, everybody.
Love it. Bye.